All right, so buckle up, everybody, because today we're taking the scenic route, a road less traveled,
Hmm.
one that's etched into the heart of the American Southwest.
Yeah, think red rock canyons and mesas.
That's right, Southeastern Utah.
A place where you can almost feel time slow down. You know what I mean?
I do. It's like stepping back into another era.
Exactly. And for those of you who like to venture off the beaten path, who crave those hidden gems, this is the place to be.
And today we're diving into one of those gems,
It's not just a road, it's a legend.
the Moki Dugway.
Have you heard of it?
Oh, yeah, I've seen pictures. It's that road carved right into the cliff face, right?
That's the one switchbacks that'll get your heart racing.
And views that go on forever.
Exactly. Panoramic vistas that'll take your breath away.
So I'm already picturing myself behind the wheel, white knuckles gripping the steering wheel as I navigate these legendary switchbacks.
Oh yeah, it's a drive you won't soon forget.
But before we get too far down the road, give us the lay of the land. What makes the Moki Dugway so special?
Well, first of all, you're talking about a 1,200-foot descent
Whoa.
over just 3 miles with grades reaching 10%.
10%. Now, I'm no mathematician, but that sounds pretty steep.
It is. It's steep, and it's unpaved.
Unpaved. Okay, so we're talking serious adventure territory.
Oh, absolutely. But don't worry, it's well-maintained gravel. You don't need a four-wheel drive to handle it.
So you're telling me I could take my trusty sedan on this epic journey?
You could, but I'd recommend taking it slow and steady, especially on the descent.
Okay, noted low gear and a whole lot of caution.
Exactly. You want to enjoy those views, not end up as part of the scenery.
Very true. Speaking of views, I've heard whispers about a Valley of the Gods.
Oh yeah, that's just one of the many visual feasts along this route as you climb the Moki Dugway. The Valley of the Gods unfolds before you. This vast landscape of towering sandstone formations, like something straight out of a John Ford Western.
Wow, now that's what I'm talking about. And I think you mentioned something about Sleeping Ute Mountain, too.
Oh yeah, you can see it in the distance, a landmark sacred to the Ute tribe. It's really quite a sight.
So we're not just talking about a scenic drive, we're talking about a journey through history and culture.
Exactly. The name Moki itself is a clue.
Oh, how so?
It comes from a Spanish word for the indigenous people who have called this region home for centuries.
Wow, so the road's name is a nod to the deep history of this area.
Exactly. The ancestral Pueblones, in particular, they left their mark on this landscape with their incredible cliff dwellings and rock art.
A testament to their deep connection to this land.
And speaking of history, we can't forget the Moki Dugway's connection to the uranium boom of the mid-20th century.
Oh, right. I'd heard something about that. So this road wasn't always a tourist destination.
Not at all. It was built in the 1950s to transport uranium ore from the nearby mines.
Wow. So even the most remote corners of the country have been touched by those big historical events.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that history is everywhere, even in the most unexpected places.
I love that. So I'm picturing myself reaching the top of the Moki Dugway heart, still pounding from those switchbacks. And then what's next?
Well, if you're ready for even more breathtaking panoramas, just a short detour off the Moki Dugway will lead you to a Muley Point Overlook.
Muley Point Overlook. Okay,
Yeah.
you've got my attention. Tell me more.
It's perched right on the edge of Cedar Mesa.
Sounds dramatic.
It is. You get these sweeping views of the San Juan River Canyon below, a completely different perspective from the valley floor.
Okay, you had me at sweeping views. I'm a sucker for a good overlook. And it sounds like
Thanks.
Muley Point delivers in a big way.
Oh, it definitely delivers.
What makes it so special?
Well, for one, you can see these incredible patterns in the exposed rock layers down in the canyon, almost like a giant abstract painting.
Oh, wow. I've seen pictures of that. It's amazing.
They call it the Navajo Tapestry, and it really is a sight to behold.
Navajo tapestry. I love that it sounds so poetic.
It is, and it's millions of years of geological history laid bare. Each layer of rock represents a different period of time.
Wow, so it's like a giant open-air history book.
Exactly. You're looking at the immense forces that have shaped this landscape over eons.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that kind of time scale.
It is. And you know, one thing that always strikes me about places like Muley Point is how the landscape itself is intertwined with the stories and traditions of the people who have lived here for generations.
Oh, absolutely. Tell me more about that connection.
Well, for the Navajo people, this land is not just a collection of rocks and canyons. It's a sacred space, imbued with meaning and stories. Many of their traditional beliefs and ceremonies are tied to specific landmarks and formations passed down through generations.
It's more than just a scenic backdrop. It's a living, breathing part of their culture.
Exactly, and I think it's something to keep in mind as you travel through this region. Take the time to learn about the indigenous history, the stories that have been woven into the very fabric of this land.
I love that that's what makes travel so enriching, isn't it? It's about more than just checking off destinations. It's about immersing yourself in a different way of seeing the world.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've taken in the views, we've brushed up on our history. But I have to ask, is there a spot along this route where I can stretch my legs and maybe enjoy a picnic with a view?
Oh, absolutely. Mooley Point is actually a fantastic spot for that. Imagine setting up a picnic blanket right on the edge of the mesa with the sun setting over the canyons in the distance.
That sounds like a pretty perfect picnic spot.
It doesn't get much better than that.
Okay, I'm sold now before our listeners rush off to book their flights. Let's talk logistics. What are some essential things folks need to know before tackling the Moki Dugway?
Well, as with any adventure, preparation is key, especially when you're venturing into such a remote and rugged landscape.
Speaking of rugged, what about the road itself? I know you said it's well-maintained gravel, but are there any particular vehicles that are best suited for this drive?
You know, a high-clearance vehicle might give you a bit more peace of mind, but a standard passenger car is perfectly capable of handling the Moki Dugway. The key is to drive cautiously, especially on those steep switchbacks.
Right, makes sense.
And remember, there are no gas stations or services along the route, so make sure you fuel up and pack plenty of water and snacks beforehand.
Good point. Those are rookie mistakes. I'd rather avoid anything else to keep in mind when it comes to navigating the Moki Dugway.
Definitely download offline maps or bring a physical map, as cell service can be spotty.
Always a good idea.
And this might sound obvious, but be sure to check the weather conditions before you head out the high desert. Can be unpredictable, and you don't want to get caught in a sudden storm or flash flood.
Safety first, always. So we've conquered the Moki Dugway. We've had our picnic at Muley Point. What other adventures await in this remarkable corner of Utah?
Well, the Moki Dugway is really just the beginning. This region is packed with natural wonders and cultural treasures, and there's something for everyone, whether you're a history buff, an outdoor enthusiast, or simply seeking a dose of awe-inspiring scenery.
Let's start with some of the nearby highlights. What are some must-sees for travelers who might be passing through this area?
Well, if you're intrigued by the geological wonders we've been discussing, a visit to Gooseneck State Park is a must, just a short drive from the Moki Dugway. You'll witness the San Juan River winding its way through deep canyons, creating these incredibly tight, almost impossible-looking bends.
Goosenecks, huh? I'm guessing the name is a bit of a giveaway there.
It is. The river has carved these meanders over millions of years, and the views from the overlooks are simply breathtaking.
Sounds amazing. And I know you mentioned Monument Valley earlier. That's an iconic landscape that's on many a bucket list. How does that fit into the picture?
Monument Valley is a bit further afield, but it's definitely worth the detour. Those iconic buttes and mesas are instantly recognizable, and they've been featured in countless films and photographs. It's a truly awe-inspiring place, and it's not hard to see why it holds such a special place in the American imagination.
So we've got epic canyons, cinematic landscapes. What about something a little more off the beaten path? Is there a hidden gem you'd recommend for travelers who are seeking a bit of solitude?
If you're looking for something a bit more secluded, I highly recommend checking out Valley of the Gods. It's similar in feel to Monument Valley with towering sandstone formations, but without the crowds, you can wander among these ancient monoliths and really feel a sense of peace and connection to the land.
I love that it sounds like the perfect antidote to the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, both literally and figuratively. What's the main takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with today?
I think the key takeaway is that Southeastern Utah and the Moki Dugway in particular is more than just a scenic drive. It's a journey through time, a chance to connect with history, culture, and the raw beauty of the natural world.
Beautifully put. And for those who are feeling inspired to embark on their own Moki Dugway adventure, are there any parting words of advice you'd offer?
Absolutely embrace the journey, don't rush it. Take the time to stop, breathe, and really soak it all in. And most importantly, remember that sometimes the most rewarding paths are the ones less traveled. It's a completely different perspective from the valley floor, and you really get a sense of the vastness of this landscape.
So it's like you're on top of the world.
Pretty much you can see for miles in every direction.
Amazing. And did I hear you right? Did you say something about a Navajo tapestry?
I did. It's one of the highlights of Muley Point. You can see these incredible patterns in the exposed rock layers down in the canyon.
I've seen pictures. It's like a giant abstract painting.
Exactly. And they call it the Navajo tapestry because it really does resemble a woven textile.
Wow. It's beautiful. But I have to admit, I'm not exactly a geology whiz. What am I actually looking at when I see these patterns?
You're looking at millions of years of geological history laid bare. Each layer of rock represents a different period of time, with different types of sediment deposited over eons.
There's like a giant layer cake of time.
In a way, yes, and it's a testament to the immense forces that have shaped this landscape, the slow and steady work of erosion, wind, water, and time.
It's mind-boggling to think about it. And, it's interesting you mentioned the Navajo people earlier and their connection to this land. It makes me wonder if those rock formations, those patterns, have any particular significance to them.
Oh, absolutely. For the Navajo people, this land isn't just a collection of rocks and canyons. It's a sacred space imbued with meaning and stories. Many of their traditional beliefs and ceremonies are tied to specific landmarks and formations passed down through generations.
So it's more than just a pretty view. It's a living, breathing part of their culture.
Exactly. And I think that's something to keep in mind as we travel through these areas. We should be respectful of the history and the culture of the people who have called this land home for centuries.
I agree. It's so important to approach these places with humility and a willingness to learn.
And you know what else strikes me about places like Muley Point?
What's that?
The silence.
The sign.
Yeah, it's so quiet up there, so peaceful. It's a chance to really disconnect from the noise of everyday life and just be present in the moment.
I bet it is. And
Yeah.
after all that talk about breathtaking views and fascinating history, I'm also thinking about more practical matters. Like, is there a good spot to, stretch my legs, maybe have a picnic along this route?
Oh, absolutely. Muley Point is actually a fantastic spot for that. Imagine yourself perched right on the edge of the mesa, spreading out a blanket, enjoying a picnic lunch with those panoramic views all around you.
Oh, yeah. Sign me up for that. That sounds amazing.
It really is the perfect place to just relax, soak it all in, and appreciate the beauty of this landscape.
Okay, so we've conquered the Moki Dugway.
Hmm.
We've had our picnic at Muley Point now before our listeners rush off to pack their bags. Let's talk logistics. What are some essential things folks need to know before tackling this adventure?
Well, first and foremost, preparation is key. This is a remote and rugged area, so you want to make sure you're well prepared.
And speaking of rugged, what about the road itself? I know you mentioned it's well-maintained gravel, but are there any particular vehicles that are better suited for this drive?
A high clearance vehicle might give you a bit more peace of mind, but a standard passenger car can definitely handle the Moki Dugway as long as you drive cautiously.
Okay, good to know. And what about amenities? Are there gas stations, restrooms, anything like that along the road?
Unfortunately, no, there are no services along the Moki Dugway, so make sure you fuel up beforehand and pack plenty of water and snacks.
God, those are definitely rookie mistakes I'd want to avoid.
And another thing, cell service can be spotty out there, so it's a good idea to download offline maps or even bring a physical map just in case.
Always a good idea to be prepared.
And this might seem obvious, but be sure to check the weather conditions before you head out. The high desert can be unpredictable with sudden storms and flash floods.
Yeah, safety first, always. So we've covered the Moki Dugway and Muley Point, but this region is obviously much bigger than that. What other adventures await in this corner of Utah?
Oh, so many. The Moki Dugway is just the tip of the iceberg. This whole area is packed with natural wonders and cultural treasures.
Let's start with some of the nearby highlights. What are some must-sees for travelers passing through this area?
Well, if you're intrigued by those geological wonders we were just talking about, you definitely need to check out Gooseneck State Park. It's just a short drive from the Moki Dugway, and you'll see the San Juan River winding its way through these deep canyons, creating these incredibly tight, almost impossible-looking bends.
Goosenecks, huh? The name pretty much says it all.
It does. The river has carved these meanders over millions of years, and the views from the overlooks are truly breathtaking.
So another spot for panoramic vistas.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's Monument Valley a bit further afield, but definitely worth a detour.
Oh yeah, Monument Valley. It's like an icon of the American West.
It is. Those iconic buttes and mesas have been featured in countless films and photographs. They're instantly recognizable, and they hold a special place in our collective imagination.
So we've got epic canyons, cinematic landscapes.
Right.
What about something a little more off the beaten path? Any hidden gems you'd recommend?
If you're looking for something a little more secluded, I'd recommend checking out Valley of the Gods. It's similar in feel to Monument Valley with those towering sandstone formations, but without the crowds.
So you can experience that same sense of awe and wonder, but in a more peaceful setting.
Exactly. You can wander among these ancient monoliths and really feel a sense of solitude and connection to the land.
Now that sounds like my kind of place. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, both literally and figuratively, as we wrap up our deep dive into southeastern Utah. Well, this is the main takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with.
I think the key takeaway is that this region, and the Moki Dugway in particular, is more than just a scenic drive. It's a journey through time, a chance to connect with history, culture, and the raw beauty of the natural world.
It's a reminder that adventure can be found in the most unexpected places.
Exactly. And that sometimes the most rewarding paths are the ones less traveled.
It's a reminder that those journeys off the beaten path are often the most rewarding, the ones that really stick with you.
And you know what else strikes me?
What's that?
It's like the Moki Dugway itself is kind of a metaphor.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about it. This road was carved out of necessity, born out of this very specific moment in history.
Right, the uranium boom.
Exactly. And yet it's become a destination in itself, this symbol of adventure and a connection to a deeper past.
It's like the road itself tells a story, and that story continues to unfold with every traveler who experiences it.
I love that. And you know, the story goes beyond the road itself.
Tell me more.
Think about those patterns in the rock layers, that Navajo tapestry we talked about earlier.
Right.
It's this visual reminder of the immense forces that have shaped this land over millions of years, you know?
It's a connection to geological time that's almost impossible for us to really grasp.
It is. It really is. And it makes you realize just how small we are.
Yeah, it's a humbling reminder that we're just passing through.
But we have this incredible opportunity to experience these places, to connect with the stories they tell.
And to carry those experiences with us.
Exactly. It's like we become part of the story, even if it's just for a brief moment.
And that's what makes travel so powerful, isn't it? It changes our perspective, broadens our understanding of the world, connects us to something larger than ourselves.
Absolutely well said.
And I think that's a perfect note to end our deep dive into the Moki Dugway and Southeastern Utah.
I hope our conversation has inspired you to seek out your own adventures, to embrace those less traveled paths, you know, and to discover all those hidden gems that are out there waiting.
So until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep sharing your stories. Safe travels, everyone.